The Swarmer is one of the oldest event towers in the game, and for a long time has also been one of the worst. But today, it just got a huge rework, greatly buffing its stats, giving it the ability to stack its bees almost infinitely, and turning it into potentially the strongest tower TDS has ever seen. Just to set the stage, it can literally solo the Void Reaver. It's also back for a limited time, costing 799 Robux. In this video, I'll be showcasing all the stat changes, values, and uses of this tower, then give my personal ranking of how good it is. So hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get started. Its placement cost increased from 300 to 450 cash, so you can still get one in the early game, but not two. The Swarmer attacks by throwing bees at enemies, dealing damage, and applying a bee effect, which can now stack. They gradually disappear, but only one at a time, so stacking them is pretty easy. It eventually unlocked an explosive beehive ability, but we'll talk about that later. By the way, when listing stats, I'll be separating his base DPS and bee DPS, since you can get really high DPS through stacking the bees. At level 0, it now deals 1 damage, its fire rate decreased from 4 to 2, its range increased from 12 to 13, its bee damage decreased from 2 to 1, its bee DPS decreased from 2 to 1, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 0.5. At level 1, for a total of 750 cash, and now deals 2 damage, its fire rate decreased from 4 to 2, its range increased from 12 to 13, its tick rate increased from 0.75 to 1, its bee DPS decreased from 2.67 to 2, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 1. At level 2, its total cost increased from 950 to 1250 cash, and now deals 4 damage, its fire rate decreased from 3 to 1.5, its range decreased from 16 to 15, its bee duration increased from 4 to 4.5, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 2.67. At level 3, its total cost increased from 1450 to 2750 cash. It now deals 10 damage, its fire rate decreased from 2 to 1.25, its bee duration increased from 4 to 5.25, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 8. It now also unlocks the Beehive Grenade ability, which is 1 level earlier than previously. This ability tosses an explosive beehive at enemies, inflicting an additional bee effect and dealing splash damage. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. It deals 10 damage and has an explosion range of 6. At level 4, its total cost increased from 2850 to 5750 cash, and now deals 15 damage, its fire rate decreased from 2 to 1, its range increased from 18 to 20, its bee damage decreased from 4 to 3, its tick rate increased from 0.5 to 0.75, its bee duration decreased from 6 to 5.5, its bee DPS decreased from 8 to 4, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 15. The Beehive Grenade now deals 30 damage and has an explosion radius of 7. Finally, at level 5, its total cost increased from 6850 to 11750 cash, and it now deals 25 damage, its fire rate decreased from 1 to 0.75, its bee damage decreased from 6 to 4, its tick rate increased from 0.25 to 0.5, its bee DPS increased from 24 to 8, and its base DPS increased from 0 to 33.33. With that, we're done looking at all the stat changes. Now, let's take a look at how you can properly use this tower and see just how good it really is. Let's start by looking at its early game potential, since you can place one on the first wave. By itself, a level 0 Swarmer only defends up until wave 2 in follow mode, so I wouldn't really recommend using it for the early game. However, it is really good in the mid to late game as a crazy boss killer. By stacking up its bees, you can deal a ridiculous amount of DPS, especially against slower tanky enemies. At max level, each stack of bees deals 8 DPS, and it applies one every 0.75 seconds. So after only 7.5 seconds, you'll have 10 bee stacks and be dealing 80 DPS. Adding its base DPS, we have a total of 113.33, and with its huge range, you can stack up a lot more than just that. On Grass Isles against a Fallen Shield, using 1 Swarmer, I was able to stack 35 bees, totaling 280 DPS per second. And while it does gradually decrease over time, that is a ton of damage that it will take before it reaches the exit. But the Swarmer gets real crazy once you start spamming it. It has no placement limit, meaning you can get 20 of them in squads or 40 when playing solo. And with this many placed, they can kill pretty much anything. Take this Void Reaver for example. Even though the medic was for some reason bugging out and I only had 1 commander, I was able to stack 3,163 bees on the boss, which equals 25,304 DPS. And that's not even counting the base DPS of the Swarmers. This easily shredded it. There is no other tower in the history of TDS that has ever been able to come close to that amount of raw damage. Just make sure you constantly spam the Beehive Grenade ability as it applies an extra bee stack. This is, by far, in terms of DPS, the strongest tower we have ever seen. And it only costs a total of 11,750 cash. That is extremely cheap. Now, I know this may be a bit unfair since I did use the commander in my example, but if we divide the DPS of 25,304 by 40, that gives each Swarmer a DPS of 632.6 and a value of 53.84. That is absolutely ridiculous. For comparison, an accelerator costs 51,950 cash to max out and deals 283.02 DPS. That gives it a value of 5.45. And again, I know I used a Swarmer with the commander, but you get the point. The Swarmer has insane value. And don't just think this tower is crazy solo. If you're playing squads and everyone has a Swarmer, you can get up to 80 Swarmers. And while you'll obviously save some slots for support, just to make calculation easier, that will allow you to get roughly 2 times as many bees stacked, or over 6,000. That's a total DPS of 48,000. Nothing has ever ever, and nothing ever will match this DPS. The Swarmer is next level. You can also get some decent crowd control out of it by spamming its bombs, but I wouldn't really use it for that. The best thing about the bombs is that they add an extra B effect. There are some issues with the Swarmer, with a big one being that the B effect isn't buffed by damage buffs. So if you're using the Swarmer, I would recommend bringing the Commander, and if you do use the DJ, set it to the purple track so it can buff the range. It also doesn't have any form of detection, giving it terrible coverage. So you have to get some different towers to deal with the special enemies. Apart from that, just because of the sheer damage it can dish out, it is an obvious S++++ tier. It is insane, and if you have the Robux laying around, I would highly recommend buying it. Do keep in mind, however, they will 100% nerf this in the future, so it will only be this good for a while. Therefore, it may not be worth the Robux spent in the future. However, that's your decision to make. And with that, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this tower and whether or not you agree with my ranking. And if you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join the Blue Head Mafia. Also, if you want to talk to me, consider checking out my Discord. We got some pretty cool features, like a custom party finder bot that will automatically pair you up with other people who are trying to do the same strategy. There's a link to the server pinned in the comments. And finally, I want to give a huge shout out to these channel members for supporting my content. If you want to add me as a friend on Roblox or get early access to some of my videos, consider becoming a channel member. It helps me out a lot and I really appreciate it. Anyways, that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.